Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, добрый день, уважаемые зрители. Спасибо, что вы с нами на нашем YouTube-канале HD-Rus. В прошлом выпуске нашего онлайн-демозала мы показали и рассказали вам о фальцевально-склеивающей машине Diana Smart. Мы получили от вас очень много положительных отзывов, и поэтому сегодня в нашем новом выпуске онлайн-демозала мы расскажем вам о машине Diana Smart в деталях. В нашей сегодняшней демонстрации мы расскажем вам о каждом узле и каждом модуле машины Diana Smart, начиная с автоматического префидера, затем о самонакладе, о секции предварительной фальцовки, о модуле нанесения шрифта Брайля, об инспекционном модуле, встроенном в машину, непосредственно о комбинированном модуле фальцовки, который позволяет выпускать четырехточечные и шеститочечные коробки, модуле отбраковки, секции опрессовки и, конечно же, об автоматическом пакере Diana Packer 4.0.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые зрители! Рады вас приветствовать на канале компании HD-Rus и Masterwork. Сегодня мы снова расскажем вам о машине Diana Smart. В прошлый раз мы коснулись ее оригинальных возможностей. Сейчас мы расскажем о составе машины в деталях. Машина Diana Smart – это наиболее универсальное средство для производства упаковки и конвертинга картона. Благодаря модульной конструкции эта машина наиболее универсальна для конфигурации производственных линий под конкретного заказчика. Машина может интегрироваться в линии и в будущем быть дооснащена дополнительными модулями, такими как модуль Брайля, модуль инспекции, или переконфигурировать трехточечную машину в шеститочечную. Сегодня в нашем онлайн-демозале мы представляем машину Diana Smart в наиболее максимальной конфигурации. Производство продукции на высокой скорости требует дополнительных устройств для приемки и подачи продукции. В данной конфигурации наша машина оснащена дополнительным префидером, который позволяет загружать продукцию в машину, и автоматической системой приемки готовой продукции в гофрокороба системой Diana Packer 4.0. Машина оснащена модулем нанесения шрифта Брайля и инспекционным модулем. Инспекционный модуль позволяет онлайн производить инспекцию и контроль заготовок по составу и по определенным критериям качества. В дальнейшем отбракованная продукция будет выведена из машины с помощью системы отбраковки отклоняемыми ремнями вниз. Инспекционный модуль широко востребован в социально значимых производствах картонной упаковки, например, в таких, как фармацевтическая упаковка. Модуль шрифта Брайля имеет уникальную возможность наносить шрифт Брайля сразу двумя аппликаторами на фронтальную и оборотную сторону коробки. При повышении скорости производства требуется более длительный обжим продукции, и удлиненная пресс-станция позволяет увеличить время этого обжима. Несмотря на то, что данная машина может работать на высоких скоростях, также в ней присутствует опция изготовления 4- и 6-точечных коробок с задними крюками. Это позволяет выпускать помимо одноточечной скоростной продукции, продукцию со сложными конфигурациями фальца, такими как задний и передний фальц. Как мы уже вам рассказывали ранее, на всех секциях машины стоят универсальные шины. Благодаря этому оператор имеет возможность устанавливать инструмент на любой секции машины. Это позволяет, помимо заявленных видов коробок, создавать уникальные виды фальцев в зависимости от потребностей. Добро пожаловать в наш онлайн-демозал, наслаждайтесь просмотром, и мы ждем от вас новых вопросов.
Добро пожаловать, смотрите и наслаждайтесь.
So we'd now like to take you through this Diana Smart section by section, explaining a few of the features and the benefits of the machine. And we'll start here with the feeder, which obviously is a very important part of the machine because we need to make sure that we get the cartons into the gluing machine to begin with. And the straighter we concentrate here, or the more we concentrate here, the straighter the carton comes into the feeder and out of the feeder, and the better the result's going to be at the end. So a few little features and benefits of that. We start here with the feeder gate itself and the feeder carriage. The feeder gate is double profiled, so we have the ability to turn it in the feeder. We also have, on the back side, we have some inserts. So the point of the tip is where we're going to wear. And obviously with more abrasive material, we wear that quicker. So here we have the ability to turn it around. So you have multiple surfaces, top and bottom. If you're running very awkward cartons or you're having issues with trying to square a carton, maybe your carton looks something like this, where you have a very small panel on the left-hand side. So what we're then going to do is we're going to pre-fold that panel, so we can pre-fold it with a pre-fold plow, mount it in the feeder, so then we get a nice long straight edge to which we can fold it. On the feeder carriage itself, it's not just about the feeder gate, it's also about the roller carriage sitting here behind the feeder gate, and we can adjust the pressure of this, so again we can control cartons. So if you've got very wide cartons, perhaps with a long trailing lid, like in a lock bottom style, we have the ability then to apply a little bit more pressure or less pressure, so we help to make sure the carton goes into the feeder squarely. We also have very simple adjustments on the top here. We can put a star wheel on the top and just adjust the pressure of the feeder gate down onto the tip of the feeder gate onto the carton. Again, trying to make sure we don't have any marking issues and we don't have any doubles coming from the feeder. So now some more features in the feeder. As you can see, we have both suction and standard belts on the feeder. The beauty of this particular feeder, and really throughout the whole of the machine, we don't have to remove shafts to change belts. And that's particularly relevant in the feeder section itself. For example, I might want to take a standard belt and put it in the middle here, or move one of my vacuum belts across. And it's very simple to do that. I undo two simple nuts and I loop the belt off, and I can put a new belt on or change the belts. I can also change the position of the vacuum just by unclipping it on the side. You'll see the little hose down here on the bottom. I can take that off and I can move that over to a separate carriage. And I can control my air settings via the simple motor down below. We have a very comprehensive control panel here. I can change and adjust my variation and my vibrator on the back here. This whole section, when I want to run very long cartons or short cartons, I can unclamp it here and move the whole section in and out. So I haven't got to massively adjust my individual backstops if I don't need to. For blank separation, we may have some static issues, or we may have some cartons that don't really want to pull apart. We also have some air, and we can use this air and we can blow it in the back of the stack, around the side of the stack. We're not governed by one particular area. We have complete flexibility of where we're applying the air through there. You can see here we also have a screen at the feeder, and that shows the person feeding exactly what's going on down in the trombone section. Rather than looking down, in the old days we had a mirror on the delivery, but machines are getting longer now, so it's a long way to look down. It's much simpler and much more accurate to do this. Some of the other features here, obviously there's a feed table. We can also put a split sidewall in here. This was the simple adjusting knob I was talking about earlier. Very simple to adjust my pressure on my feeder gates. And those are just a few of the little highlights on the feeder itself. Now we come to the blank aligning station. So obviously we've tried to set our feeder to make sure the carton is as square as we possibly can. So the purpose of the blank aligning station is to make sure it is absolutely square. And we have the ability now to either align it to the left-hand side or also to the right-hand side. We also have a center carriage on the top and also on the bottom. So if maybe we're running tapered cartons and you can't align it, we still have great support and great guidance of the carton surface through that section. I can take pressure off by simply just rocking these back. It takes the pressure off of the rollers. So if my carton is still slightly twisted, I can actually influence the movement there. I have a nice facility here where this carriage I can move 200 millimeters. Now that's important if I'm running perhaps a window carton with a big cutout and my carriage sits right on top of my window. And then that could cause me marking issues, and I don't need that. So what I want to do then is be able to move that carriage away from that panel, so I can take it onto a different panel but still control the carton through the machine. The aligning bar itself has two profiles, and I have one here and I'll show you the difference. We have two profiles. So we have a V profile which is coming through here, and hopefully you can see that. And it's a V, and we can also turn it completely over, so if we're running something like a heavyweight corrugated board, we can actually square it with the L-shaped profile on this side of the aligning bar. So all nice features in the aligning station that help to produce quality cartons. And that's logical because after that we go through to the inline inspection system and also then on perhaps to Braille, but we'll cover those two separate items later on in the presentation in a little bit more detail, and we move straight over to the pre-fold section. This section is a long section, it's 3 meters long, and that's important because what we don't want to do is, as we make our pre-folds, is we don't want to tear our crease lines. So the longer the pre-fold section is, the more gently we transfer the blank down the machine. So the object of this particular section is I want to pre-fold my first crease and also my third crease. As you can see on the back of the machine here, we're actually pre-folding the third crease here. We're pre-folding it to around about 100 degrees, but because of the length of the section, we can actually fold it completely over to 180 degrees if required. The beauty of this particular section also is it's very open. So if you're running perhaps pharmaceutical cartons and you want to put in like a leaflet inserter, we have the space and the areas to do that. We also have the ability, because of the way the machine is constructed, by simply unlocking these two nuts here, I can move my carriage from the center belt out onto the far belt if I need to, for a certain carton application. I also have the ability, because of the profile on top of the carriages, I have the ability then to mount whatever I need to mount, whether it be a folding hook, a plow, a sword, or a special attachment. I can mount it on top of the carriage, and it moves with the carriage as I adjust the cartons as well. Other nice things, as you can see, is the bearings all run in one travel direction. And that's important if you're running very sensitive surfaces, because we don't want bearings running in different directions and then we have friction between the bearings and the carton surface. Other nice areas is on the beginning and the end. They're all on eccentrics, so I can open up the mouth of the carriage. So if I've got a lot of material trying to squeeze through, I'm not trying to squeeze it into a smaller area. I open it up and it's a more gentle transfer and hence reduced marking. The way we mount the top carriages to the bottom is very, very solid. It's not a flimsy design, it's very compact, it's solid, and it also caters for all materials. So we don't have to individually adjust the pressure of the lower rollers for lighter weight stocks and corrugated board. It automatically compensates for it. This particular machine, being a C version, we then would do predominantly our lock bottom and four corner in the next module. But if this was an A version machine, we would also produce some lock bottom cartons in this particular section of the machine. Because it's long enough, we still have the ability to pre-fold, not to the same degree, but we have that option still available. Again, because of the way we have constructed the machine, on certain carton styles, this is a very useful table. On other styles, it needs to come out of the machine, but because we've cut the side frames of the machine out, it also gives the operator much easier access into the machine, so he doesn't have to go around the back to make adjustments. So that's a little bit about the pre-folder, and now we're going to move on to the combination fold module. And this is really where we're going to be doing our foldings for the lock bottom cartons, the four corner cartons and the six corner cartons that are possible to convert here on the Dynasmart C version. Again, the beauty of the section here is the many different carriage formations that you can formulate. That we're not restricted to a 2-carriage machine, it's a true 3-carriage machine throughout here. And in some cases we have up to 5 carriages there. So we have a lot we can move, a lot we can adjust to make the critical folds. It's also a section we can see with a cutout, so it's easy to adjust for both sides. And on the back wall here we also have some folding modules which are also very useful for reducing your make ready times. One is a Z fold and one is a small folding module. The carriages we spoke about earlier, one thing I didn't mention was that they are incredibly light, so when you need to take them out of the machine, it's very simple to do so. And again, this is a good example of where we can mount anything along the top carriage, as you can start to see some of these elements of folding hooks and plows and hold down rails being mounted. And the beauty here is we want to take it all off in one section and put it back in one unit, not multiple parts that we're putting backwards and forwards into the machine. So this particular module, as we said, is a combination fold module available in the C version with the 4 and 6 corner. So we have the rear folding shafts here, and there's one just under here. And if we have a lock bottom version, which is the B version, you have the same module, but you don't have it with the rear folding shafts. So now we're going to move on to the bottom glue pot. Actually, one thing before I do go, we should really mention is the light guards. So the light guards are only here when we need to operate with 4 and 6 corner cartons. So as soon as we engage that facility in the computer set it automatically puts the light guards on and we can't step in and out of the machine then. Apart from that, we do not require the light guards in activation. So now we're at the bottom glue pot. This pot's been designed for 650 meters a minute, which is now becomes very relevant for the DynaSmart. Now the speed has been upgraded as an option to 600 meters a minute in the DynaSmart speed version. This pot is designed with a very low level of adhesive in the bottom, with the scraper coming in very low on the glue wheel, a very large diameter glue wheel. We also have an air nozzle which blows any potential tailing of the adhesive as it leaves the wheel and is attached to the carton. As the carton leaves the bottom glue pot, we can blow the bead of adhesive in the direction that we want to and not back into the carton. Also have on here, we have a glue line inspection system. So we're reading and measuring whether we have too much and also too little glue on the carton. And now we move a little bit further down and we go into the final fold section. So here we want to make our two final folds probably, which would be the second crease line and the fourth crease line. Here we have the advantages of this section now being able to fold both the left before the right hand side, also the right before left, and also we can fold centrally, so we can fold both panels at the same time depending on what the individual carton requires. The section again is 3 meters long, which is important when you're running again at high speed, and the make ready times have been vastly improved by simply cutting the side frame out so my operator can reach very easily across the back side of the machine. We also have the facility where we have a variable speed pulley here, so I can influence the speed of both my left and right hand folding belts. So again, if I have a carton perhaps with a slight fishtail, I have something to actually cater for that and control that. Because I can move my cartons and my carriages wherever I need to move them, I also have the ability to offset fold, so I can move this carriage out onto the far belt. And this gives us a big advantage when we're running very small cartons and very difficult cartons which have very small panels. And if I want to make complete overfolds, I can make a bridge in here, so I can actually make my fold over, and then I can make the fold the opposite side as well. But I can still get my carton surface all the way down onto the side I want to get it glued to. Other areas, we've got the nip rollers here, so we can adjust the pressure both to the left and the right independently, so we can really crease the crease lines if we want to, or we can back the pressure away if we also need to. Other things in here, we have the center carriage, the top one here, obviously swings in and drops in, and the bottom one stays in the machine at all times. The two ends actually fold in and it drops down, and here we have the ability then to extend it the whole length of the section, which is important for greater control of the carton surface and reducing any marking issues. So again, this is a very, very refined section with lots of flexibility in if we need it, but it's also very simple to set and adjust when we do require very quick make-ready times as well. Okay, so this is our control panel. It's a 24-inch screen. We have the basic information like production data, so meters a minute, the number of cartons we've run, the running speed, but we also find our job storage here. So jobs we've previously run in the past, we can recall very easy. Now these machines are also data ready, which means we can transfer information from the pre-press department down to the machine, so we also then know what our sequence of jobs are, and we can record the information on that particular run at any particular time. We also in here have the ability to set our machine. So this particular machine is controlled by a system called AutoSet, which is an automated make-ready system. But this is very similar to DigiSet. DigiSet doesn't have the adjustable motors on there. So both systems would require the operator to put in the blank dimensions. It will ask him whether he wants to align left or right, and it will also ask him if he wants to pre-fold. And once he's put in that general information, he sends the information down to the digital indicators, and then he can start his make-ready process. So that's how we program it. As you can see, we have some basic carton styles on the top. We also have a complete cross-section of the machine, so just by sliding the bar along, we change the picture and we work literally from the feeder all the way down the machine, and that is our control panel for every individual section. So a lot of information can also get stored in there. There's also a notebook in there, so if you want to record specific data about a job, we have that facility as well. So now we come to the trombone section, but it also houses the inline ejection system. And while we're running it, we'll also eject a few cartons so you can see the process as it takes place. So here we have the inline ejector, which is this area here. Very simple to set, and you'll just see a carton drop down, hopefully. The beauty here is that because it's an inline ejector, you can eject anything that you're running. So it doesn't matter if you're running a lock bottom job, a 4-corner or a 6-corner job, you can eject it. And it may be for a glue fault, or it may be out of rejected by the inline inspection system or the braille module. The other nice facility in this section is you have the ability to adjust the speed of the upper and also the lower the belts. And that gives us the ability also to straighten any cartons if we still require that facility in the machine. So now we're in the trombone section. You can also clearly see the kicker here. That could also be mounted on the left and the right hand side. So the compression section, the beauty of here is obviously you've got very great control, and we can play a little tune in here to make sure we can grab the box and maintain any squareness, because what we don't want to do is make a perfectly square carton and lose it as we enter the delivery conveyor. There's a couple of things on the delivery conveyor which actually help us with that, is we have it split into 4 sections. So we do have the ability to adjust the pressure both from the left to the right and also the front to the back. We also have some additional squaring heads here, mainly used for corrugated material or perhaps some poor ratio lock bottom cartons where you can actually influence the folding sequence. So here this will actually swing round and drop into the mouth here of the delivery conveyor. The carton comes in, it hits the metal plate, and the belt pushes it down and pushes it under the delivery conveyor. Because of the complexity of the machine that we're running, we also need the ability to both overstack and also understack. So we can drop this table lower, and then we can understack the cartons as well as overstack them. Simple things in here like the brushes. We also have the ability with the air nozzles, we can blow air in this section. So again, we can hold panels down to make sure they deliver correctly onto the table. An important part of the machine, because ultimately that's the final stage, then we need to make sure that we get good adhesion of the carton. And with the long section that we have here, we have that availability. And because again, the complexity of the machine and the styles that we can now run down here on the DynaSmart, we also have the option of a 7-meter delivery conveyor in addition to the 5-meter delivery conveyor. So lots of different possibilities and options available. And that really, in very brief summary, is a DynaSmart with lots of nice features to help the operators and to help maintain the production and the consistency of quality that you require. Okay, so now we're going to concentrate on the braille unit. We've actually set the carton up so it's actually brailing on the 3rd panel. But what we will do is we'll move the braille setting over to the 1st panel. So Heinrich, if you can just move the braille setting for me, and we can show the customers how easy it is to move it with our new facility in the machine. So there's a few important steps that he will carry out now. One of the things you'll notice is the C-arm of the machine has actually been moved slightly towards the feeder. So now he has a little bit more space to operate in. We now have put a spindle adjustment on both the upper and lower tool. With a synchronizing monitor on the back, you'll see the small screen on the back of the braille module with the digital numbers in there. And he will set those so that they are absolutely 100% on top of each other. So by pushing one of them into the correct position, the other one he has to dial it and move it until the symbol shows a series of X's, and then we know it's absolutely one on top of the other. The other things he's done is he's moved the front carriages. So whereas we were brailing before on the 3rd panel, we now have to change where we support the carton, because what we want to make sure is we support it while we braille. And that way we can ensure very precise positioning of the braille on the carton. Now we've just been handed the 2nd set. You can see, hopefully, this was the original setting, and we've now moved it over to the 1st panel. And this is the beauty of the simple cross adjustment system. The braille system obviously is very a useful tool. So now we're going to focus on the inspection module. This is an individual module, it's just this small section here. And this has been designed obviously to evaluate every single carton that we run down the machine. So we have a working width of 420 millimeters, but you could actually increase that to 800 by putting a second camera in place. So at the moment we have a vacuum belt here, and we also have suction. So we positively control the carton as it comes through the machine. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to set the system up. Pia will set it up for us, and we'll take you through step by step how we're doing that. So Pia, if you'd like to take over and start setting a job up for us, that would be great. So the first thing she'll do is she'll recall the job that was previously run. So she'll type in a little bit of information. The job will now be loaded. So although we've loaded the job, now what we need to make sure is that the cartons following in the feeder are of actually the same job and the same setup. So we run a couple of cartons through. It will give us a pictorial proof of what we're running. And now what Pia's done is she's now called up the PDF, which has come from the pre-press department. So now the important thing is to compare the PDF with the actual cartons in the machine. Obviously with a PDF you've got a clear, brilliant white background, and we can't replicate that exactly onto the carton surface. So now we have a choice. We have to make choices as to what we accept and what we don't accept. You'll also see on the screen that Pia's just turned from. Pia, can you just go back one screen? You'll see different colors here. You've got a red, a yellow, and a blue box. And these are layers. So these all replicate different levels of quality inspection. So as you see, there are blue sections there, which are the dust flaps. We're not really interested on the dust flaps, but we are interested in the main content of the carton. And that's why we have different levels. So maybe a company logo or medical advice is the most critical part. So we set the tolerances much tighter on those areas than the other areas. So now what we'll do is we'll compare the PDF with the samples in the machine, and that's what you see on the bottom here. And then we have the choice to accept it or not accept it. So each individual item is then picked up as critical areas, and then we accept them, as Pia's doing here. So once she's happy with the quality of the boxes that are going into the machine, we'll now accept that. All the way through the process, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen there a flashing light, and that's always indicating to the operator what they have to do next. So they'll accept that. They're now setting the spot size. Now again, she's checking, and now we're checking the anchor points. What we want to make sure is that even if the carton comes out slightly out of square, that we can make sure that we don't reject that just because it wasn't perfectly aligned. So we set 2 anchor points, which is Pia's doing now. We set those in areas where it's very clear that we're in the correct position, and then we can read every carton going through afterwards. So again, she'll accept it as a next. So now we have created a master sample. Now what we need to do is we need to take a selection of cartons, normally at least one of each die station, and run those through the camera. And then we see a little bit if there's any variation across the width and the length of the sheet. Obviously, the more cartons you run through the process at this stage, the more accurate your settings are going to be. What it will then do is it will then pick up the extremes of what you've seen running through the camera. So we'll see the top end and the bottom end. Again, you're comparing it back to the master at all times, and we can accept individually what it is. So we can remove certain cartons from the evaluation process. Once we're happy with the results we've found, we'll then move on to the next step, which really is putting the cartons back in the feeder. And running it through. So it really is a very, very simple system to operate. It's very quick to set up, and that's very important, especially if you're talking short run packaging, short run pharmaceutical, where we need to be able to chop and change jobs very quickly and efficiently without being held up by lots of quality inspection. But at the same token, we want to make sure that every carton going down the line is the correct carton with the correct information on. So as we start to ramp up the speed, we start to see a few errors coming in, some of which we put in deliberately, and you'll see some pictorial evidence of what we're actually seeing, so you know what it's being ejected for. In inspection mode, the machine will run up to around about 300 meters a minute, not 300,000 cartons an hour, around about 100,000 cartons an hour. So we really are now checking. We're checking the colour, we're checking the die to print registration, we're checking the contents of the carton, and we're also checking to make sure there's no defects, that maybe there's an oil stain in there or somebody's trodden on the carton or damaged the panel. So we really can see everything through there, and that's really from the first carton of the production through to the last. So Piers now will look at the results of what we've run. And this will generate a report which is Excel compatible, and it will tell us exactly what we've done. So it will tell us the information on the job, the settings that we've actually selected. It will also give us a copy of the sample carton, the golden image, the area that we're actually reading, the settings that we put in there in terms of the different levels of tolerance, and then we get to the individual defects in the cartons that we've actually detected. So it's giving us a pictorial display of exactly what the camera has seen and why it's been rejected. So it's a very clear and precise method of controlling your quality, and something you may or may not want to share with your customer going forward. So that really is a very brief overview of what quality inspection can do for you. I think the important thing is here we have to accept that when you're looking as an individual at a range of cartons day in, day out, you will never achieve the same quality as you can with an inline inspection system, which monitors it the same way from the first carton to the last carton. So thank you, Pierre. So now we're down at the packing end. This is our Diana Packer 4.0. We'll actually run the machine for a little bit so you can see the motions, and then we'll turn it down because obviously it makes quite a lot of noise. So we need just to let you see the machine running. We're running a 4-corner tray, you have to remember, and we're running at 36,600. It's just over 230 meters a minute. Okay, so we just slowed it down just so we can explain, and hopefully you can see a little bit better the process that it's going through. So the importance here is that we keep a continual shingle through the Diana Smart itself. We have 3 options here. We can also turn the carton to the left-hand side or also the right-hand side. On this occasion, because of the carton style, we're running straight through the packer. It's very simple to change that. As you can see here, we have the rails on the floor, so we can literally just move the turning station from side to side. We then come into a long buffer zone, and the buffer zone is very critical because obviously we need to make sure that we can have enough cartons in there when the brake comes in and the count in the case is correct. So the count will come up. There's a laser counter here on the top which will accurately count your cartons, then deposit them into the packer. The brake will come in, and then we start to back up in the buffer zone the shingle stream. And then we accelerate the buffer zone away, as you'll see in a minute. The importance here is controlling the stream, and controlling the buffer zone through here is critical. This area has actually been beefed up in the last generation upgrade, and also the turning module has been made simpler. So it's much easier now to adjust The plate on the top here, we don't have to physically remove it, we can just literally lift it up and tilt it out of the way when we don't need it, or we need to get in there to remove a jam perhaps. The other important things that we've now recently developed on this machine is the Digiset facility that we have on the Dynasmart has also now been added to the Dynapacker. So we're reducing the make-ready times. So in the past when we talked about an automatic packer needing to be on long runs, we've now reduced that facility. So really you can use it for pretty much any run length that you want to use it for. And maybe that's the advantage, where if you leave it on, then your operators actually change it over quickly and precisely on a day-to-day basis. So the importance here is when we've got our shingle coming through, we're depositing it automatically into the case. We can run with 4 rows and 4 layers. It will fill 1 layer at a time. The case will then be discharged out of the system. It will come down, it will discharge, and then a photocell on the end here will actually pick up whether the case is full or it needs to go back into the machine and put the second layer. For the future, we will also have mounted here an option to insert automatically the layer cards. So we can put the layer card into the base of the carton, into the middle between the streams and the layers of cartons, and also one on the top if that's required. Some other facilities for the future. It's not actually on this machine at the moment, but it's now will be available. So this section here, we will add a small conveyor. We will set in the computer system the ability then to put some extra cartons into a case that we choose that amount, and that will then be discharged to one side for one case for quality inspection. So the operator will have to come down, he'll have to check his quality before he puts the case back into the process and into the cycle of the packer. If you're familiar with the old Dynapackers and the old J-Packs, in the old days we used to have to put weights on the side of the cases to control the case and to drive it through the machine. Now we have a positive driven system, so we do away from the need really to have anybody standing here. You can completely automate this process if you want to, with a case in feed and a case discharge system. With automatic case control going around the system, we also have the ability to discharge the case where we want to discharge it. It could be this corner on the side here, or it could be the back corner as we're using it here. And that gives us a little bit of flexibility and possibly a little bit of space saving as we start to use a discharge conveyor also down the length of the packer. When we don't need to use the packer, we can push the buffer zone and the turning station to one side, and we can also then fit in a semi-automatic packer, something like our Dyna Easy Packer. Can also go in there for semi-automatic styles like lock bottom and some other complex work. The packer itself is really suitable for straight line boxes, 4-corner cartons, and some sleeves, because we can run it exactly the same way as the 4-corner carton here, where we can run the sleeves directly in line. So all in all, a very flexible packer. The only thing you can't do on it is lock bottom cartons, but obviously it gives us that ability to run the machine at the high speeds that we can run a folder gluer at if our cartons allow us to. So that in brief is a very brief summary of the Dynapacker. And in combination with the Dyna feeder, it really does utilize the performance of the machine.
Ждем ваших комментариев. Спасибо за просмотр и спасибо, что вы с нами. До свидания.